Okay, so here is the interview, Discourse interview with Desmond Fox, and I'm Joseph Millard. We're not allowed to curse, so that takes out like 8 of the 15 words I know. And so I'm just going to be talking to you about being atheist and just regular interview.
Okay.
All right. So
We can do a regular interview.
yeah, it's pretty easy, right? So what is it like to be an atheist? Just general overall, just big opener.
It's fine. It's totally comfortable and normal and good. There's really I don't have much to complain about there.
Is there like being an atheist? What does that generally entail to you right now in your day to day?
What does it entail?
Yeah. What is it like to be an atheist right now? Like, and I'm using that specifically, not to be like a father or to be a man. What is it like to be an atheist? How does being an atheist affect you in your day to day?
In my day to day, it doesn't affect me much. The Gallup polls do show that some percentage of Americans, it's a large percentage, would be less comfortable with an atheist president than any other denomination of religion. So there is an existing stigma against it, and I am open about my lack of religion, but I don't feel as though it's actively negatively affected me in any way yet. It creates tension with family occasionally, nothing too intense, but being asked to do the family prayer or something like that during Thanksgiving, and I'm not against it. I'm fine with them doing their prayer, but I don't want to lead it because I don't have anything honest or heartfelt to say about it. Things like that.
And how does that make you feel being excluded? Well, not necessarily excluded, but how does that make you feel being surrounded? Maybe not even surrounded, but being presented with a typically religious outset at a otherwise non-denominational gathering like that.
It's fine. The only concern that I really have personally is about my kids being exposed early without having the appropriate preamble and the appropriate setup for understanding what religion is. I was raised to keep an open mind about religion, and I was told about God and Christ and everything, and I was made to know that those are acceptable things to believe, and also nothing is an acceptable thing to believe. But my children are still really young, so the only thing that throws me off is when we have discussions like that with family without being informed beforehand that it was something that I need to set them up for.
Okay. So with that in mind, do you feel like there's anything you need to do or any responsibilities you have as an atheist, a skeptic atheist, to keep that idea going, to keep that thought of non-existent, deity, to keep that alive, I guess? Do you feel like there's a responsibility you have?
To a point, yeah. I think that several religions, especially Western ones, are very focused on conversion. They want you to convert people. They want it is your job to spread the word of God, and to convert people is healthy and it's normal and it's you doing your job for your religion. Mm-hmm. So there's not really so much of that when it comes to atheism, because there's not a religious side to it. There's no community. There's no sense of direction or agency. There's no duty that I have to fulfill. I think that the best thing that I do as an atheist for the community is just to be openly an atheist at all.
Yeah, there's not like a doctrine in any.
Yeah, there's no
circle.
dogma. There's nothing that I have to do.
Yeah,
but I think being vocal and being comfortable identifying as an atheist is just to say that we're here and that we do exist and that there are more of us than you think there are. And I think that that's just the best thing that you can do for it, just because it'll make you less of a minority. It's easy to target minorities. It is easy to attack small groups of people or single people in a community. It's easy for that to happen. Yeah, but when the number gets bigger and that the number is getting bigger and more visible, that's when it it becomes an issue. It becomes something that you can't so easily discriminate against or attack. Or
Yeah.
So being vocal and being open.
Now, do you feel like being an atheist restricts you? Like, being, like, having these beliefs, do you feel like they are hindering you in any way, or are they enhancing you in any way? And I don't mean, like, in a moral or core belief. I just mean in any sort of scenario. Does it socially, either with jobs or schools or anything like that, interacting with other parents? Does being an atheist hinder you or help you in any regard?
Not yet, but I think it's possible that it will. I remember being a child, one of my best friends in second grade, his family were atheists. And my family, we were apathetic agnostics. We didn't really have any sort of doctrine or any sort of idea that we were attached to. I was raised to just kind of be into it all, accept things, people believe what they want, and then when I'm an adult, I kind of make the decision for myself. And I did. But I remember being a child and being friends with this person. I remember that he was very much a pariah. And he was open about his atheism, and it made people kind of attack him and dislike him, and I worry about that for my kids. I worry about them going to school and having that label on them. And I remember my dad telling me to lie about my religion when I was a kid and to say I was non-denominational because nobody would have asked any follow-up questions. Half the people wouldn't know what that meant, and those who did would assume non-denominational Christian rather than non-denominational, not religious at all. So that's about the only thing that I really have concern for. Beyond that, I don't think that, aside from people making snap judgments about me, just because they know that, I'm just interacting with deeply religious people. I have interacted with a few people who learned that I was an atheist and then decided not to interact with me, but I don't think that that's representative of the larger Christian or religious culture at all. I think it was just one person who had a limited worldview and was made uncomfortable by my opposing ideas.
I understand. I'm more of a militant atheist. I am a little more gung ho about it. So, my problems aren't in line with that. So sometimes, I'm much more vocal. I'm much more into that expression. And I remember being surrounded and not surrounded. Being a militant atheist and teaching art at that Christian school church, and I remember that only being a hindrance in what I was allowed to teach, and that specifically was it was almost jarring. I wouldn't say it was like a problem, because I understand there are always going to be restrictions for teaching, but that was something, and I was trying to relate that. But what do you like? How do you feel? How was it getting into the atheist community? Like, was it suddenly you started interacting with more circles online, or was it like personal circles, or how did that expand your social arena?
Well, it was interesting because I'd always considered myself an agnostic beforehand, and so you'll know that an agnostic is somebody who doesn't claim to have knowledge either way, that there is a God
right.
or there isn't God.
Yeah.
And so I always felt that way. But if you ask me, do I think there is one? And I said, I don't know. That's actually the definition of atheism. It's actually that as an atheist, I'm saying that I don't believe there is one because there isn't evidence to suggest there is one. And if there was evidence to suggest that there was one, then I would be in favor of that evidence because that would be the empirical right. And so for me, it was I considered myself agnostic until I realized that the definitions weren't what I understood them to be, and that agnostic was just the safer word to use, but it wasn't actually descriptive of my actual beliefs. And my actual beliefs were described by atheism. I don't believe in a God because I haven't been presented with evidence to suggest that there is one. So that was very personal, and it was profound because when I accepted that and looked into that, then you want to look at the voices who represent you. You want to look at outspoken people who have said things in line with your thoughts. And so from there it was approaching works by Christopher Hitchens,
Carl Sagan,
Penn Jillette,
yes,
it's pretty much those are the people that you start looking into. So as far as my actual social circle, if it's actually been affected, it hasn't really, because there's not a congregation of atheists who really get together popularized in the world. And there are secular communities, even here in Albuquerque, but small groups and generally people I wasn't interested in spending time with, just based on what I consumed. But no, it hasn't really affected socially at all. It hasn't stopped me from hanging out with my religious friends. It's just given me more topics of conversation with my non-religious ones. But it really hasn't expanded my social circle or restricted it in any way as far as I've been able to tell.
So, like, they're almost mutually exclusive in some regard. Like, being an atheist, it doesn't necessarily affect the other communities you're a part of. It's just a facet of your belief system. It's not like a lifestyle necessarily.
No, not at all. It is mutually exclusive with all other aspects of my life. It doesn't affect my job. It doesn't affect my political alignment. It doesn't affect...
Yeah, it would if you were like the Pope. Like if you're an atheist and you were the Pope,
that'd be a real problem. Yeah. That'd be almost impossible. Like it's like a sliver of... Yeah. No, yeah, as long as I'm not running for office or anything, it's not going to be a big deal, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. All right, I have a few more questions, but I exited out of that.
That's fine.
Oh, okay. I know we have different views on atheism and how we choose to go about it. You know, I'm a loud, obnoxious guy, and I'm constantly like, you know, being really aggressive about it. But are there some things that are important to being a skeptic that you care to share? Like, are there things that you are actively wanting to engage people with when it comes to being a skeptic atheist? Is that something that is there something that you want to bring to like that group that is shared amongst other atheists that you're excited to interact with others with?
I like having the conversation about it.
Yeah.
I like talking about it, and I like talking about the whys, and I like talking about just there's a lot of philosophy behind atheism, and atheism doesn't lock you out of, you know, of the supernatural, because the supernatural is just things we don't understand.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's cool is being able to engage in conversation about things that we don't understand, things that we would label as miracles or things that we label as supernatural.
Right. Yeah.
And then being able to actually have an empirical conversation about it and trying to actually, take that apart and try and find an answer. Because throughout all of history, people have, if we didn't understand something, it was magic.
And that was magic.
That was always how it's been.
Yeah, every mystery.
And every single mystery ever has proven to be not magic.
Yeah.
So, we keep going with that. And so there's still things that we don't understand, absolutely. There's all kinds of crazy phenomenon that happen every day that actually happened. And, people will chalk it up to miracle or to magic, and it's not, because it's just more stuff that we don't understand. Engaging in conversations about that within a community that isn't going to write it off as metaphysical, that is the most engaging part of being an atheist and having communication with others for me.
See, now I found that the older I've gotten, the more I'm willing to share these ideas with the people close to me. Before, I used to be very reserved. I wouldn't necessarily say scared, but I was apprehensive to, bring it up around my family or my friends that I was an atheist and a skeptic. Because being those things, it can seem kind of restricting to people. If I say I'm a skeptic and an atheist, then there's a tendency to treating me as an unbeliever, or like that I don't have any sort of a creative faith in things. Like, what do you think about this? And I was like, well, I don't know. I think it's interesting in regards to, I don't know. I'm not going to say homeopathy because I have very strong opinions on that, but things that we can't explain.
Right.
And the older I've gotten, the more I've been willing to share these things. The more I've been willing to open up about them. And I'm wondering, do you feel comfortable sharing that with the people that are closest to you, like your children? Do you feel comfortable sharing the debunking of a mystery with your kid? Like, the Loch Ness Monster isn't real, I'm sorry. like that sort of scenario. Are you starting to share that more with, the people who are really close to you?
Kids are a good example because Santa Claus.
Exactly. I'm skirting that issue, but
Yeah.
like that's pretty much what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
It's like, hey kids, Santa's not. That's your uncle.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, Santa's not real. He isn't, and he really is. I've heard it argued both ways by atheists that, do Santa Claus or don't. The do Santa Claus is because Santa Claus is training wheels for God. He's, you let them believe in that, and then when they find out that he's not real because that's ridiculous, it makes it easy to say, well, what else is ridiculous?
Yeah, what else is there not, being supported?
Exactly.
What is true in that you can understand?
Yeah, and I've also heard it argued that, don't do Santa Claus because it's deceptive and because you're lying to your children, and why would you want to lie and deceive your kids? So for us, it's been challenging because how we've kind of gone about it is, we have Santa Claus and we do that, but it's all with like a wink, it's kind of, I wanted to approach it as a mystery. I want to approach it as a use of her critical thinking skills. And when she confronts me, she goes, I don't think there is. It's going to be a proud moment. It's going to be congratulatory. But yeah, as far as general comfort with it, it's a lot of big ideas. And right now, to my 4-year-old, God doesn't exist because she's never even heard of the idea. She has no reason to believe that somebody created the earth in 7 days. She has no reason to believe that something created animals or...
Yeah, her biggest problem is chicken nuggets now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's just not there. And I think that that could just be the natural resting state, is that it doesn't have to. You're allowed to find the answers yourself and look for those. But as soon as she is 5 years old and she starts school, and she's going to be out of my hands, and people are going to talk about religion because lots of kids go to Sunday school. So yeah, I have to be comfortable communicating with her about that, and I have to be able to give her that this is what other people believe and why, this is what I believe and why, and then you have to put all that weight on them. You can believe whatever you want, and that's kind of a lot of weight to put on a kid.
It is. It's a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot easier to just say one thing or another, but I don't necessarily think that it's right to just say that Dad's right.
Now, one last question. I did want to talk about Santa Claus, but we're running kind of long on this, so I don't know if we'll have time. No, I'm not going to talk about Santa. Now, the history of atheism. Where there have been key important events for being a skeptic and being an atheist throughout history that have promoted a lot of healthy genial events, right? Like Darwin. He's a key example that a lot of people quote and sometimes misquote for their own benefit. There's also several figures, Einstein, right? These people came in and did very beneficial things, not only for the world and for humanity. In my opinion, however, there were some bad things that happened because of these events, but also for being a skeptic. They promoted these ideas of being a skeptic and an atheist, and promoted the good of those ideas. Now, do you feel like there are any important points in history that have either gone in the opposite direction than intended? That church of atheists that started a while ago? Or do you feel like it's only good that has come from these specific points in history of being a skeptic and atheist?
So your examples, one of my favorite is Darwin. He wasn't an atheist. He was a Christian guy. He believed in God, and he kind of presented this idea that you don't have to pick. You can believe in empirical evidence and also believe in a creator, and that's fine, and that they're not enemies. And so I think that was a good first step, and I think we're still getting there. I think most people now will say that they believe in evolution. Most Americans even believe in evolution because it's true, just like it is. And
that's just a fact.
There is no contrary evidence against it at all, and it just is a fact.
It is it's a theory.
Yeah. And scientifically speaking, a theory is a fact. So that's and most people admit that, and also most people are still Christians. Most Americans are still Christians.
Exactly.
So I think we're getting to that point where yeah, I think that any and all exposure and any sort of thought put into that, it's good, and our numbers increase, and more people find themselves, atheists or agnostic or generally non-religious, or and I think that religion is a product of ignorance and a product of tradition. And I think primarily people are religious because they're raised to be religious, and that there really isn't a stronger reason for people being religious in this world. So no, I think it's all been positive. I don't the Sunday mass or the Sunday gathering, whatever it was called, but
Yeah.
the group of British atheists who were getting together every Sunday, and yeah, there was some weird fallout with that, and there were some atheist bloggers who weren't allowed in, and there was like some weird stuff going on there, but it was only positive because it was in the news, and it was reminding you that atheists exist, and that they're not a thing, and that there's no agenda, there's no, I'm all about the debate and the conversation when somebody wants to have the debate and conversation. A lot of religious people don't want to do that, and that's fine, and I don't want to engage in that conversation with them either. The big difference is that my mind is open, and that, if you presented me evidence to the contrary, I would believe it, and then I would change my whole worldview based on empirical evidence, and that I'm open to that. But most people who are deeply ingrained in faith won't. And it doesn't matter what the evidence says, because they rely on the notion of faith. So no, I think it's all been positive, generally speaking. I think there's no bad publicity. There still hasn't been, an atheistic warlord. There's still, it's still been, it's still all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing this. I tried to be as unbiased as possible, but that's impossible. So, thank you, and that was the Discourse community of Skeptic Atheism. Now I have to lean over.